So this time we talk about Angular 2 directives. There's some big portion of Angular 2 directives that come with the core of Angular 2. And this time we try to understand ngIf. I don't know if you're familiarized with Angular 1, but what ngIf does is remove or recreate a portion of the DOM tree based on an expression. So an expression, if you remember, it's with the double brackets. If the expression is assigned to ngIf evaluates to a false value, then the element is removed from the DOM. And if your expression is evaluated as true, it will clone the element and reinsert it into the DOM. So an expression can be true, false, condition, whatever you want it to be, as long as it can pass by an Angular parser and then be evaluated by the Angular engine. So let's see how we do it. So let's create a new component. We can call it ngIf. Okay, so as usual, we start by importing the core from Angular 2. ngIf belongs to the core. There are several ways of writing ngIf this time, not as last time in Angular 1 there was only one. So let's start by writing our class. We want to export it so it will be visible from other location, and also it will be easier to test it. So it will be ngIf component. Okay, we create a constructor. If we need to do some things when the class is initiated, and we do the heavy lifting on init. So it's usually the best practice to do the heavy lifting in the ng on init. And we would like to add a private member. Let's make it public so it will be visible, and let's initialize it in the engine on it to an empty string. Okay, so now we have a class, and what we need to do else is use the decorator of component and tell Angular 2 exactly what is this class meant to be described as. So you use the component decorator, you give it your JavaScript class. Okay, so first we'll make it have a selector, so we can browse this page, call it ngIf route, and let's create a template. Okay, so there's several ways of writing Angular 2 ngIf, so we'll just see every way we know. First of all, we want to create our condition. So we'll insert a text input field, and we'll call it, we'll bind it to our insert text that we created in our class. And we have here, we say it's two ways binded. The bracket says it's binded from the template to the class, and this represents that it's binded from the class to the template back, so it will render when the class changes and when the template changes. So it's two-way binding. And what we want to create is just our first ngIf. So we'll create a new div. Okay, so we have a new div, and let's review the first ng type. So this time we have the star, and we say ng if, and our expression. So we just say that if our text equals true, then we want to display this message, and our message will be you have entered the true. Okay, so we have a component, we have our routing, and we have a mistake in our routing. It should be like this. Our class is described with the decorator component, and we would like to add it to our index. Okay, so we added it to our index, and now we'll add it to our app file. So we want to create a new route. We'll call it ngIf. Sorry. And we need to import our class, so Angular will know what class are we talking about. Okay, and we add our new route. And we give it the name we assign to it. We let Webpack compile our file again. Now we can see that we have ngIf, and we have our input box. If we add something, it doesn't change, but if we add true, it also doesn't work. So let's see why. We go back to our component, and let's evaluate our okay, so one thing that we forgot to do, our input text is a string, so and it's not a Boolean object. So let's say reload it, nothing happens. But if we insert true, you have entered true. If we delete, you see that it removes the element from the DOM. If we enter true, it creates a clone of our element and re-enters it into the DOM. So there's another few ways to use the ngIf. Let's display it. Usually you'll use the star with the ngIf, but you can also use the template method. You say template and ngIf in your expression, and let's check if it works. Okay, so we recompile a page. You can see that now we have two values, and we can do an opposite condition just to see how it works. Okay, so now we will see one and we won't see the other one. So we see the first one, and if you enter true, you can see that you have entered false is removed from the DOM element, from the DOM, and you have entered true is cloned and re-entered to the DOM. And the last way of creating an ngIf is using the template element. So template, one-way binding. If our condition insert text is true, you have enter true. This is a little bit less common. It's easier to understand, but it's harder to understand this time. Usually this is the main way you're gonna do it, but let's just see if it's working. So we recompile our file and we see that we have an error. Okay. And we add an extra closing to the string, recompile it. We enter true. We see that we have twice we have entered true. We can see each of them. So this will be the first one, and this will be the second one. Our page is reloaded. If we enter some random text, nothing happened. But if we enter true, so you have entered true is evaluated. So this is the 3 ways you can use ngIf. Remember to check your expression that you are not mixing values, and your expression should at the end return true or false, so Angular will know if to add this element to the DOM or remove it. And